Have you ever stopped to wonder what it really takes to bring a life-saving drug to market? Or maybe a new technology that could literally change how we grow food? Well, today, we're diving deep into that incredible, high-stakes journey of building a biotech company, from a single idea all the way to changing the world.
You know, the story almost always begins right here. The vast majority of these game-changing biotech ideas, they don't pop up in some corporate boardroom. Nope. They can be traced right back to fundamental research, pure discovery, happening in university and research labs.
And the ambition here is just staggering. We're talking about products that aim to cure diseases like cancer and diabetes, or to develop medicines that are personalized just for your DNA. Or, hey, creating crops that can feed a growing planet. The goal isn't just to build a company, it's to make a massive, fundamental dent in the universe.
So that's the big question, right? Because the path from a brilliant discovery in a petri dish to a product that helps people is one of the most challenging, expensive, and uncertain journeys in the entire world of business. So let's break down what it really takes.
Okay, first up, we have to get our heads around the sheer scale of this challenge. Launching a biotech startup isn't like launching a new app. It is a completely different kind of gamble, defined by immense risks and unique hurdles that, honestly, most other industries just don't have to face.
Just look at this contrast. It is so stark. A typical tech startup might need a few $1 million and maybe a year or two to get a product out there. But a biotech company, we're talking a whole different universe. We're talking hundreds of millions of dollars, over a decade or more, all while navigating these incredibly high regulatory walls. It is a marathon, not a sprint, a really, really long marathon.
And the spending, it just never stops. Even successful biotech companies often pour over 40% of their revenue right back into R&D. Think about that for a second. For every dollar that comes in the door, almost half of it goes straight back into the lab. That tells you everything you need to know about how capital-intensive and research-driven this industry really is.
So you've got a discovery, and you understand the risks. What's next? Well, the next critical stage is transforming that initial spark of an idea into a real, protectable, valuable asset. This becomes the bedrock of the entire company.
And this brings us back to a really key difference from other industries. The biotech journey doesn't start with a business plan. It starts with a scientific breakthrough, often funded by public grants in a university setting. It's science first, business second. This leads to a really simple, powerful truth. For a biotech startup, the intellectual property, the patent, is the company. It's the single most important asset. It's what makes the idea tangible and defensible. Without that legal protection, nobody is going to write the massive checks needed for development.
So how do you get it? Well, acquiring that IP is a formal process. First, the inventor discloses their discovery to the university's Technology Licensing Office, or TLO. The university then files for a patent. After that, the new startup has to negotiate a license to get the legal rights to actually use that technology. It's a critical and often pretty complex first step on the board.
All right, once the IP is locked down, the focus shifts to the human element. Because in biotech, let me tell you, having the right people on board is every single bit as critical as the science itself.
This philosophy from Jim Collins is basically the Bible for great biotech companies. They totally get that if you start with who instead of what, you can adapt to anything. The science might change, the market might shift, but if you have the right team, you can navigate any new direction.
And leading these teams, it requires this unique set of contradictory traits. It's a real paradox. A biotech CEO has to be a visionary who can inspire everyone with a grand mission, but also a micromanager who sweats the tiny details. They have to be incredibly passionate about the science to survive the long journey, but also detached enough to make cold, hard business decisions, like killing a project you love when the money's on the line.
So you've got your team and your IP. Now the company enters the longest, most grueling phase of its entire life. The years, and I mean years, of testing and clinical trials needed to prove a product actually works and is safe.
And this is a true gauntlet where most products fail. Phase 1 is all about safety. Phase 2 gives you the first hint that it might actually work. But Phase 3 is the monster. We're talking huge trials, thousands of patients, lasting years and costing upwards of $100 million. A failure at any one of these stages can literally kill the entire company overnight.
So navigating that decade-long gauntlet requires constant fuel. You just can't do it without a continuous, uninterrupted flow of cash. So where does all this money come from? How do these companies possibly stay afloat?
In the super early days, when it's just way too soon to know what the company is even worth, they often use a tool called a convertible note.
You can think of it like a loan that gets the company started, and then it later converts into ownership for the investor when a bigger, more formal funding round happens. It's a clever way to get that first critical cash in the door.
Now, that first outside money usually comes from two main sources. You've got angel investors. These are wealthy individuals who invest smaller amounts, and they're often driven by a personal interest and a real desire to mentor. Then you have venture capital firms, VCs. These are professional fund managers who invest way bigger sums, millions of dollars, with one goal in mind, getting a massive return on their investment.
Over its lifetime, a biotech company is going to tap into a whole ecosystem of funding. After the angels and VCs, they might partner up with a big pharmaceutical company for help in the later stages. And if they're really successful, they might eventually go public and raise money on the stock market through an IPO.
This brings us, finally, to the last leg of the journey. After a decade of work and hundreds of millions of dollars, the product works. It's proven to be effective. But there are still some major hurdles to clear before it can actually reach patients. You're not done yet.
Getting that final regulatory sign-off is a whole other mountain to climb. For a medical device, for instance, there are two main paths. The 510(k) pathway is a faster route for lower-risk devices that are basically similar to something that's already out there. But for a high-risk, totally new device, you have to go through the pre-market approval, or PMA pathway, and that requires a mountain of safety data and can take years to complete.
But here's the kicker. Even FDA approval isn't the finish line. After all that, a company has to have a reimbursement strategy. You have to convince insurance companies and government health systems that your new product is actually worth paying for. If you can't do that, even a world-changing therapy can completely fail in the marketplace.
And that brings us to the final thought here. The journey is absolutely brutal. The odds are stacked against you. The financial and scientific risks are just enormous. So, who in their right mind would do this? Well, the answer lies with those founders, scientists, and investors who truly believe their work can change lives and who are willing to take that billion-dollar gamble.